Kane, the Hawaiian god who birthed a universe. What does it take to create a universe? For ancient Hawaiians, it took one god, a single thought, and the nerve to shove an eternity of darkness out of the way. Before there was light, before there was even time, there was only Po, a silent, endless, black chaos. But inside this suffocating nothingness, something stirred. A thought took form, and a single powerful god willed himself into existence, ready to build a world. This is the story of Kane, the great Hawaiian creator, the ancestor of all people, and the divine architect who birthed a universe from absolute nothing. Part 1. The First Awakening. In the beginning, well, there wasn't one. There was only Po, a primordial darkness that was both everything and nothing at all. It was a realm of pure potential, silent and formless, stretching on forever. No stars, no earth, no sky, just an unbreakable, eternal night. But existence, it seems, can't be held down forever. Deep in the chaos, a consciousness flickered to life, a sense of self, totally separate from the darkness. This was Kane. Through a sheer act of will, he ripped himself free from Po's embrace, becoming the very first independent being. He was totally alone, a single point of light in an ocean of nothing. But he wouldn't be for long. In some of the great creation chants, two other beings felt his presence and pulled themselves out of the chaos right behind him. First Lono, and then Ku. While Kane was the spark, the will to create, Lono and Ku would soon become key players in his grand design. Together, this divine trio stood on the edge of creation, staring out into the endless night. But Kane, whose name simply means man or male, was the clear leader, the first one out of the gate. He was the first thought, the first spark of a plan. And his first thought was simple, but huge. Let there be light. With a surge of divine power, Kane pushed back the suffocating darkness. Light flooded the void. Not sunlight, not yet, but a pure, raw energy that created the very idea of day and night, order and chaos. For the first time, the universe had a boundary. It had a shape. The darkness wasn't gone, but it was given its own space, its own domain, while the light claimed everything else. The stage was set. The canvas was clear. Creation could finally begin. Part 2. The divine team effort. With light now in the picture, the universe was no longer a formless void, but it was still just an empty, silent space. This is where Kane's brothers played their parts, turning creation into a kind of divine team effort. While Kane was the architect with the vision, Lono, the god of peace, fertility, and harmony, filled the emptiness with the first vibrations, the music that would hum beneath all of existence. Then came Ku, the god of action and substance, who took the abstract ideas of light and sound and gave them physical form. They worked in perfect harmony. Kane had the idea, Lono gave it life and spirit, and Ku built it. Their first creations were the lesser gods, spirits who would handle the finer details of the world to come. After them, they crafted the Menehune, a race of smaller, hard-working spirits who would be their loyal builders and messengers. With their divine crew assembled, Kane, Lono, and Ku got to work on the main event, forging a world. They built the heavens in 3 layers, the highest for the gods, a lower one to hang above the earth, and finally the earth itself, which they imagined as a beautiful footstool for the gods. They sculpted mountains that scraped the sky and carved valleys that would cradle life. They poured out the vast, churning oceans and filled them with creatures of every shape and size. They planted the first massive green forests and populated the land with animals. They hung the sun, moon, and stars in the sky, setting them on their paths to mark time. Kane was the engine behind it all, earning the world a sacred name. Kahonua Nui Akane, or the Great Earth of Kane. The universe was alive, a masterpiece of divine teamwork, but there was one last thing missing. Someone who could appreciate it all, a being made in the god's own image. Part 3. The Making of Man. Creating humanity was going to be Kane's most personal project. The gods decided to make a being that looked just like Kane. To do this, they gathered sacred red clay, Lepo Ula, from the four corners of the new world. They mixed this clay with their own divine spittle, pouring their essence into the raw material. The body was molded with care, but they paid special attention to the head, shaping it to mirror Kane's own divine face. The figure lay there on the ground, a perfect but lifeless statue of clay. Then, in the ultimate act of creation, the three gods leaned in and breathed life into the statue's nostrils. The clay figure shuddered, its chest rose with its first breath, and it was alive. This first man was named Kumuhonua, which means foundation of the earth. But Kumuhonua was alone. So, while he was sleeping, the gods took one of his ribs, his Lalo Puhaka, and from it they fashioned the first woman. In this version of the story, her name was Lalo Honua, below the earth. From this pair, all of humanity would spring, making Kane not just their creator, but the divine ancestor of every person to ever walk the islands. It's worth noting that other legends tell this story differently, with the first man and woman having other names like Huli Honua and Keolalo Honua. But, like in so many creation stories, this paradise wasn't built to last. A fall from grace was coming. Legends say that humanity got into trouble over a forbidden sacred fruit, which angered the gods. Because of this, Kane, who had planned to live on Earth with his creations, made a tough call. He left the world behind and moved to his kingdom in the heavens, leaving mankind to figure things out for themselves, and for the first time, making them mortal. He was no longer walking among them, but his power was still woven into the very fabric of the world. Part 4. The Symbols of a Life-Giving God. Even after he left for the heavens, Kane's presence was everywhere, especially in the life-giving forces of nature. He is, first and foremost, the god of fresh water. In a place like Hawaii, water is life, and Kane is the source of that life. One of the best-known stories about him involves his travels across the islands with his companion, the god Kanaloa. Whenever they got thirsty for their sacred drink, awa, and couldn't find any fresh water, Kane would take his digging stick and jam it into the dry, rocky ground. And every single time, a spring of cool, fresh water would burst forth. This act is packed with meaning. The stick striking the earth is a powerful symbol of procreation. It represents Kane as the masculine force, making the land fertile so that life can thrive. Many of these springs, known as Kawai a Kane, the water of Kane, are still honored today as a direct connection to the god's life-giving power. But he's more than just water. As the god who brought light, he's tied to the sun, the sky, and the dawn. He is the sunlight that coaxes plants to grow. He's also Kane Hekili, or Kane the Thunderer, his power visible in a flash of lightning. And when rain and sunlight mix to form a rainbow, that's seen as Kane too, a beautiful bridge between his power in the sky and his gifts on earth. You can also feel his presence in the forests. He's connected to bamboo, ohe, sugarcane, ko, and especially the taro plant, kalo, the staple food of the Hawaiian people. These plants, essential for survival, are considered his kinolau, his physical forms on earth. Through them, he continues to provide for his children. Part 5. A god of life, not blood. Here's what really sets Kane apart from many other top gods in world mythology. He was completely benevolent. One of the most important ideas in his worship is the sacred phrase, Ua kapu ke ola na Kane. Life is sacred to Kane. And this wasn't just a nice saying, it was the foundation of his worship. Unlike the rituals for other gods, like the fierce warrior god Ku, which sometimes called for human sacrifice, the worship of Kane was totally bloodless. No human or even animal sacrifices were ever made to him. Why? Because he was the giver of life, and to take a life in his name would be the ultimate insult. This defined him as a god of pure creation, more of a nurturing father than a demanding king. Worshipping Kane was a personal, everyday thing. You didn't need complicated rituals led by high priests in giant temples. Instead, people would often set up simple family altars called pohaku o Kane, or stones of Kane. These were usually just tall, unadorned stones placed near a home, where anyone could offer prayers, ask for guidance, or just say thank you. The offerings to Khan reflected his nature. People gave back the gifts he provided: taro, pork, sweet potatoes, and the sacred awa drink mixed with his own fresh water. Chanted prayers were the main event, a direct line of communication between humanity and their creator. This simple, intimate worship shows the deep, personal bond the Hawaiian people felt with their original father. He wasn't some distant, scary deity, but a constant, life-sustaining presence in their world. Part 6. The Divine Brotherhood. While Khan is the top creator, he almost never acted alone. His story is tangled up with his brothers, the other three major Hawaiian gods, Ku, Lono, and Kanaloa. Together, this divine four-pack represents a complete cosmology, with each god embodying a different, and sometimes clashing, aspect of the universe. The core creative team was the triad of Khan, Ku, and Lono. If Khan was the mind who dreamed up the universe, Lono was the spirit who filled it with peace and harmony, and Ku was the body who did the hard labor and gave it solid form. They were a balanced team: thought, spirit, and action. Their teamwork shows a universe built not by one power, but by a blend of different forces working together. But Khan's relationship with his other brother, Kanaloa, is way more complicated and fascinating. Kanaloa is the god of the ocean and the underworld, and he's often seen as Khan's polar opposite. Where Khan is fresh water, light, and life, Kanaloa is the salty sea, darkness, and magic. In some myths, they're inseparable twin brothers, traveling together and famously creating those freshwater springs. In those stories, they represent a perfect duality. In other legends, though, Kanaloa plays the villain. He's sometimes a rebel, a trickster messing with Khan's perfect order. One story tells of Kanaloa trying to create his own man out of clay, just like Khan did. But his statue wouldn't come to life. Furious, he declared that Khan's man could live, but would eventually die. And when he did, Kanaloa would claim his soul for the underworld. In this version, it's Kanaloa who introduces death to the world, becoming his brother's rival and setting up the eternal cycle of life and death. This dynamic makes their relationship one of the most compelling in Hawaiian mythology, representing the fragile balance between creation and destruction, light and shadow that governs the world. From a single thought in an endless void to the architect of a universe, Khan's story is all about the power of creation and life itself. He isn't a god of war or fear, but a divine ancestor, a father who shaped humanity from the sacred earth and breathed his own life into them. He's in the fresh water that quenches the land's thirst, the sunlight that warms it, and the forests that cover it. His legacy is written all over the landscape of Hawaii, in every spring that gushes from a rock and every rainbow that paints the sky. The principle that life is sacred to Khan truly sets him apart, defining a relationship with the divine based on gratitude, not fear. He is the ultimate creator who, after building a paradise, stepped back to let his creation grow, forever remaining a symbol of life, light, and the incredible potential that can spring from even the deepest darkness. If you enjoyed this trip into the heart of Hawaiian creation, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our next dive into ancient mythology. Let us know in the comments which god or goddess you want us to cover next. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep digging into the stories that shaped our world.